And this is the best thing about how the human brain works.
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
Let's talk about your team. Obviously, you've got people doing sales, you're running ads, you're getting them coming through. How did the team growth happen? How do you recruit people?
Yeah.
How do you get them onto the vision? How did they grow? All that good stuff.
Yeah, awesome. I'll separate this out into our two main businesses that have teams. But before I even talk about the people side of things, I think the one thing I want to get across to your listeners is process before people. And what I mean by that is to run and scale a business, it's not about just adding more humans all the time. Really, before you do that, you need to sit back and think, as we did for our business, what's our CRM that we want to run that ensures that we can monitor and manage effectively? What are some of the things that we can automate that don't need a human to actually do things? What are some of the things that are currently inefficient, and let's make them efficient before we hand them over to a person? So really thinking through the whole business structure around stuff, first of all, is where people need to start. We did that with our land business. And then at the point in time, I'll actually add a fourth one to that as well. As a business owner, you need to know how you want every single part of your business to operate, how you want your calls to be taken, how you want your deals to be negotiated. And you need to do all of that yourself first before you go and hire someone else to do it. And people might be like, well, why? Why don't I just hire a salesperson? Well, how are you going to measure success unless you know what success looks like? So really knowing what that looks like and being able to measure it, and then hiring someone to do things in the way that you want them done is really where it starts. So when we got to the point in our land business, it was at that point, guys, that we thought, we don't want to just be a hobbyist in this. Like Matt and I had another consulting business. He was still working full time, and we were doing a couple of deals a month. And it was like, all right, we can see that this is now working. If we were to switch from being what I call a hobbyist, which is doing this business part-time and doing a couple of deals, to a full-time business, what does that look like? So we mapped out our numbers, and then we ensured that our systems were able to cope with those numbers, and then we went and hired people. But when it came to hiring the people, I was very focused on the culture that I wanted to create in our team. And that culture was one where it's about enablement. I think too many people I see in this real estate space, no matter if you're a realtor or a real estate investor or a developer, I see way too many people going and hiring a VA, which we don't call ours VA. They're our customer service team and they're part of our family. But they go and hire a VA and give them a list of things to do and expect that everything's going to be perfect. No, it's not how it happens. You can't just pass stuff off to a human and expect miracles to happen. So then it becomes about, well, what's the culture that you create? How do you set guidelines and boundaries and steps and processes and SOPs? How do you get all of those things set up to set that person up for success, and at the same time to step away and let them get on with it? And that comes down to really good training, really good feedback. I have daily meetings with my land team that I was just on before, where we don't go into the minutiae of stuff because they know what to do now. They own it. And then how do we also share in the successes? So yes, our team's all based in the Philippines, but as soon as we close on a deal, they all get a profit share of part of that deal. So they've been with us long term, and we're changing their lives by what we're doing with them as well. So that was our land business, moving from hobbyist to this is now a real business. In our supercharged offers business, which is our marketing business, that was really sitting back and looking at it differently. And that really was, what are the areas of expertise that we need to provide a service to our customer? And once we knew that, then it was, what are the systems for those areas of expertise? And then what are the people that can run those for us? So in our supercharged offers business, which is all marketing services for real estate investors, we're about to branch out into other areas of real estate too. So targeting roofers, air conditioners, contractors, anybody who does anything with real estate is a target. And so what we needed to sit back with that and think, our end-to-end service is everything to do with acquisitions marketing. So within that, we needed data experts, a data processor. We've got a data scientist, a data processor. We have a content writer who's a specialist content writer that we've trained up in how to write good real estate content. We have a researcher that does our ebooks, our listicles, our checklists. We've got me. I do sales and customer experience. We have a project manager. We've got a designer. We've got a developer. They're all in our team. And the way that I like to look at that is anybody who uses our services for supercharged offers, they can't afford to go out and get all those people. It just doesn't make financial sense for them to do that. But they can borrow my team when I get them all set up on a campaign and get them up and running. So sometimes it's about asking yourself, do I need to hire that person myself? Or can I find someone who's already got those people, do what I need to get done, and then just manage it from there? So how do we set people up for success to help manage what their business is moving forward without them needing to go and hire full-time resources?
100%. I mean, this is the big reason for, say, marketing companies like yourself and the many others that are out there with regards, they have all these resources in place. They have all these people and you're taking a bit of their time and you get, the retainer for that or however they choose to charge you. And it's not just someone kind of click and go on an ad. Like there is a lot more that goes into it. And I think
Correct.
there is a detachment there. I think it's probably a similar detachment with the whole VA thing, versus like just an employee, right? Yeah. It's like they're virtual. They're just virtual employees. They're my customer service team. They're my sales team. And just because they're virtual, I understand what you mean. I think, in fact, more recently, like in these these last few weeks, there's been a few conversations about the word VA. And like using it when it's like, well, technically, for example, me and Peter work together. Well, does he come under a VA? Like if he helps me, is he my assistant? If he's a virtual assistant out there? And it's like, I don't know, you just don't associate it with that. It was definitely something born out of, the Philippines mainly, I think it kind of came from. But I do see the tides changing there. It's like, is that just my customer service team? So I want to kind of break down these two hiring funnels because I think they're different for different people. Because I think some people are in a position where an agency like yourself would make sense. It's like, listen, I've got bread, I can pay, and I'll just get it done, and I forget, and I'll just collect deals like you are now, where you're getting, trust fund baby selling you his home, and you're on the other side of the world, and that's awesome. But then let's take it full circle and go a newer agent, maybe someone getting going, and they're just crazy busy.
Yeah.
Like Peter is, he's on the road all the time. He's got 20 million things to do. He's selling homes. He's showing homes. He's negotiating deals. And it's like, he just needs help. Now, we've got assistants in our company. We have people who help us both to keep us on track as best we can. But how did you go about hiring those people? I know you mentioned about SOPs and processes. Did you do their jobs first, then build out the processes? How do you work out pay or competency? Because there is obviously levels of that. Because I think for a lot of people, maybe more of our listenership are towards a point where they want to start hiring the first few people. There might be a case of they have 1 or 2 on their team. They want to get to 5, but they need an assistant. Does hiring someone in the Philippines make sense for them?
Yeah.
Like, do I not need Sarah, I don't know, to be sat next to me in the office? Like, someone over there couldn't do that. How do you feel about some of those things?
Yeah, there's lots in those questions. So let me break that down to a few things. First of all, I do not believe that you need somebody next to you to be effective. It's all about the relationship that you build with them. So we've got our data processor in our supercharged office team. Shout out to Maybelle. She is amazing. She's like my right hand and my left hand. I could not do what I'm doing without her. And we've never met in person. We catch up every day via Zoom. She's been with us for a couple of years, and I love her like she's part of our family. And I think it's about not thinking through the lens of I need to see you to trust you, but it's about what is the relationship that I want to create with my team so that no matter where they are, we can talk about anything and everything at any point in time. And how do you create that vibe? So really asking yourself first, what kind of leader do I want to be? And I think that's pivotal, because if I'm the kind of leader that, and I hate to say this, guys, but if anyone listening, if you're a control freak, you are going to struggle with resources, point blank. So you need to ask yourself first, what kind of leader do I want to be? And therefore, what kind of team culture do I want to create where I can just let people get on with it? Otherwise, if you want to have control over everything, you are going to give yourself another full-time job where all you're doing is managing resources. And that defeats the whole purpose. So to come back to a few things that you mentioned there, Andrew, I think it starts with, first of all, yes. The answer is yes when it comes to, did you do everything in your business before you hired people? 100%. And that's because we wanted to see what was effective and what was not effective. Did we have all the SOPs written before they all started? No, not all the time. But here's a really good thing to do for those that are going out and getting new resources, particularly if you're hiring them for a new job as well. Train with them. And so when we hired Maybelle, we hadn't had a data processor before. We were doing it all ourselves. My partner, Matt, has a tech background and he's awesome when it comes to things like data. But we had an entire training schedule mapped out for her from every single thing that we needed done in that role. And every day when we went through a training session, we only did a few things a day because people's brains can only handle so much. What we did is we recorded those sessions. We went through step by step of everything that we needed to do. Her next action then was to go back and listen to that recording and create the SOP. And this is the best thing about how the human brain works. There's twofold in that. One, we're showing and people are in listening mode, but then they are in doing and action mode. And that creates two different synapses in our brain around how to put that all together and go, oh yeah, I can now see how that works. And when we've done that with a few members in our team, so we've been more agile, I would say, with when we're hiring. We know what the position description is. We know what we want as an outcome. That's all documented. Our interview guides are documented. Our training plans are documented. It doesn't mean that the whole job is perfect. It does mean, though, that we need someone that is agile and flexible, and we need to be agile and let go of control. And as we're training them, we're also creating the job at the same time. And that allows us to test things with them. So we've written that SOP. Next time we do that, we want you to go and do that task, go through that SOP and check off, does that work? If it doesn't, let's come back and review. And that's allowed us over time to create a huge repository of training manuals, guides, checklists, SOPs, you name it. And it also means that when there's redundancy in our team, so if one team member was to leave, which luckily we haven't yet, we've got an awesome team in place, it's going to make it so much easier to plug and play for the next person.
100%. I think it's an interesting thing. This is part of this virtual world that we've had to adapt to, isn't it? We've all had to learn how to kind of structure what we want doing. I think in an office, that's something we haven't had to do so much of, because they can come and sit by you and you kind of talk them through it numerous times, but you never write it down. And I think this is a learned skill. And for a lot of people, I've always been a big fan of systems. I'm an engineer in my past life, so all that stuff works hand in hand with how my brain works anyway. Yeah. So I've been building systems and stuff, but I know for a lot of people, it doesn't at all. I mean, it is mundane, boring, and it's hard as well. I think the control freak thing is an interesting point though. And I kind of want to touch back on that actually as well, because I think that's, out of everything, I think that's probably going to be the most common hurdle. Whether people want to admit it, it's this ego control freak thing vibe.
I want
that
things done my way, and if it's not done my way and it's not perfect, then we're seen as someone doing it wrong.
Right. So I guess one of my questions would be to you is, were you like that prior? And if you were, how did you get over it? Or were you not like that before?
I will admit that I've probably been like that a number of times. And I think the thing is self-awareness. That's where it's got to start. So when I know I'm in control freak mode is when I'm not seeing the results that I want, but it's less about control and more about me putting up the mirror at that point and going, okay, what have I not done to set this team member up for success? Like if I'm not seeing the right results, rather than me wanting to get control and just jump back in and do it for them, what's missing in terms of their training, their knowledge, their skill set, all of those things. So start there. Because when you're doing that, your shift of energy will move from control to teach. So that's it as well. The other thing too, guys, I just want to take you through a bit of a methodology. So I actually have a background in leadership consulting. And prior to us doing real estate, I had a consulting business where I'd go into organizations and teach leaders how to lead. But one of the things,
set yourself up for success then.
Yeah. So one of the things that I tend to talk about is what I call the raft B canvas. Raft being like, what's our safety raft when we want to create a feeling of psychological safety in our team? And how do we surround that with the right thing? So raft B is just an acronym that I came up with, and I'll just give you a really high level of it. But the first thing, and this also comes back to the culture that you want to create with your team. And team can be two people. It can be you and a virtual assistant. It doesn't have to be a cast of thousands. So the first R for raft B is about relationships. How do I set the right relationships in place for my team members to be successful? And that's not just relationships with me, but how do I introduce them to industry experts, to my boots on the ground people, my realtor, my broker, my title company? How do I give them the right contacts and connections to set them up for success so that I'm not the central point? They can utilize that network and those relationships to be more successful. The A is for accountability. And this is where the control people need to step back. How do you ensure that you create a culture of accountability where you're very clear on what needs to be done and you hold people to account to do that? So this is where I call the deliver on promises stuff. Creating that culture where people know what's expected and they deliver on those promises, but you set the expectation that if they can't deliver, they let you know well in advance and you work out a subsequent plan to that. But we definitely have an accountability culture where we back each other up and say what we do and do what we say. The next one's around feedback. Now, this is an interesting one because, yes, I give my team feedback daily. This is working well, guys, because I'm on a call with all of my team members daily. This is working great. Good job there. Love this. Saw that this might need a bit of improvement. Let's talk about it. But then I always ask for feedback. What can I be doing to help you? What can I be doing differently that's going to make your job easier? Feedback has to be two ways. And if you're not willing as a leader to accept feedback and look at growth, then don't lead. The coming back to raft B, so that's the F. The T is for trust, which is how do you bring your whole self to work and ask your team to bring their whole self to work without judgment. So trust has got to be a judgment-free zone. The minute we bring judgment in and make assumptions and start to create stories in our heads about what our team is and isn't doing, which is also very dangerous for people that aren't with you, they're in another country, we break down trust. And you've got to have this trusting environment and create a space where your tribe, you and another person or you and a group of people, feel like they can say and do whatever is on their mind, and it will be a judgment-free zone. And that's got to be created. And the last one, which is the B that surrounds it all. So we've got the raft bit. The last thing is boundaries. So really having clear expectations. And this is where the process, SOPs, things like that really come into play. But what are the boundaries of my role? Where does my role start and stop? And where does theirs begin? So that they know, like even when we're going out with offers with our customers, we will pre-calculate what our offers are from our offer min to our offer max. They do not have to ask me to negotiate within that. We give them the numbers and say, when you're on those calls, here's your parameters, go for it. This morning, we closed on 3 more sellers because my team was able to negotiate with them on the call, and they've now sent out the contracts. 2 of them have already been sent back signed. I didn't even know about it because I've set the boundaries for them to just do what they need to do and to own their space. And here's the psychology behind this as well, guys. When people can own their space, you actually get more from them.
100%.
100%. So, letting go and trusting in the process and the people is huge. So, yeah, I know that was a long explanation. Sorry, guys, but hopefully your listeners got something out of that.
No, it's super valuable. I think everyone listening to this, I don't care how big or small you are, if you woke up tomorrow and there was another 2 or 3 deals over that you were collecting checks on and you were like, oh, shit, I didn't even know about that. They'd want them. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Now, before you go, we're giving access to a private training we did where we revealed the top 3 niches to get listings today completely for free. So if you want access, you can go and download that training at eliteagentsecrets.com. We're regularly releasing new trainings, guides, and cheat sheets, so make sure to head over to eliteagentsecrets.com and sign up so you don't miss out.